This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, July 12th. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. South Africa's top court is holding a virtual hearing Monday as former President Jacob Zuma challenges a 15-month prison term. Zuma's chances of winning the challenge are minimal, according to legal experts. Meanwhile, authorities were hoping for a calm in Johannesburg on Monday after shops were looted and a section of the M2 highway was closed and stick-wielding protesters marched through the streets of the city on Sunday. Sporadic acts of violence erupted following the imprisonment of former South African President Jacob Zuma. Emily Wither has the details.
Shops were looted and protesters took to the streets in South Africa's main economic hub on Sunday as sporadic acts of violence spread to Johannesburg. Demonstrators expressed their anger following the jailing of a former South African President Jacob Zuma on Wednesday. The unrest had mainly been concentrated in Zuma's home province, where he started serving a 15-month sentence for contempt of court. Zuma's sentencing and subsequent imprisonment have been seen as a test of the post-apartheid nation's ability to enforce the law fairly, even against powerful politicians. But his incarceration has angered Zuma's supporters and exposed rifts within the African National Congress. Zuma was given the jail term for defying an order from the Constitutional Court to give evidence at an inquiry that is investigating high-level corruption during his time in office. Police said criminals were taking advantage of the anger to steal and cause damage. Authorities warned that those inciting violence could face criminal charges.
Emily Wither of Reuters reporting. Meanwhile, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa called out the protesters, saying Sunday there is no reason for the unrest following former President Jacob Zuma's imprisonment.
While there are those who may be hurt and angry at this moment, there can never be any justification whatsoever for anybody to embark on violent and disruptive actions that negatively affect the rights of others. Let us be clear, as a nation, that we will not tolerate any acts of criminality. We will not tolerate any acts of vandalism. Those who are involved in acts of violence will be arrested and prosecuted.
Police say criminals were taking advantage of their anger to steal and cause damage. Zuma has denied there was widespread corruption under his leadership, but has refused to cooperate with the inquiry, which was set up in his final weeks in office. Ethiopia's election board says Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's Prosperity Party won the most seats in Ethiopia's parliamentary election on Saturday, a victory that assures him another term in office. On the streets of Addis Ababa, there was little reaction to the results. Some people say they are most concerned about the war in Tigray and would like Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his party to make peace a priority. Abiy hailed the June 21st vote as the country's first free and fair election after decades of repressive rule. However, an opposition boycotts war in the northern region of Tigray, ethnic violence and logistical challenges in some areas soon overshadowed the election. Voting did not take place in 3 of Ethiopia's 10 regions. Abiy's party won 410 of 436 parliamentary seats, according to election board deputy chairperson Wubshet Ayele, who announced the results in the capital. Chairperson Birtukan Midekesa says the board had delivered a credible election. But opposition leader Berhanu Nega says his Ethiopian Citizens for Social Justice Party, EZEMA, has filed 207 complaints after local officials and militiamen blocked observers in the Amhara region southern nations and nationalities and peoples region. Abiy now faces international pressure over the war in Tigray and accusations from rights groups that his government is rolling back some new freedoms which it denies. Rwanda has deployed part of a 1,000-strong force to Mozambique over the weekend to help the country battle an escalating Islamic State-linked insurgency that is threatening the nation's stability. The soldiers and police officers departed by air from the Rwandan capital, Kigali, on Saturday. The 16-member Southern African Development Community in June approved the deployment of a joint force to help Mozambique respond to the conflict that is concentrated in the northern Cabo Delgado province. The troops from Rwanda, which is not a member of SADC, are expected to fight alongside Mozambique's forces and SADC troops, according to the Rwandan government. Almost 800,000 people have been displaced in Cabo Delgado, and the fighting has brought a $20 billion natural gas project led by oil giant Total to a halt. Mozambique's population is mostly Christian, while Cabo Delgado is one of the few provinces with a Muslim majority. Now to the latest in Haiti. The head of Haiti's national police, Leon Charles, says authorities have arrested a Haitian man who flew to the country on a private jet in June and worked with the masterminds and alleged killers of President Jovenel Moïse. Charles identified the man as Christian Emmanuel Sanon and says he traveled to Haiti with political objectives. Charles said after the interrogations of the alleged perpetrators in custody, police believe at least some of the suspects were hired by the Miami-based company CTU Security. Interim Haitian Prime Minister Claude Joseph says authorities in the country are thoroughly investigating Moïse's assassination. Moïse was shot to death at his home in Port-au-Prince on Wednesday. His wife, Martine Moïse, was seriously wounded in the attack and was taken to Miami, Florida for treatment. A technical team from the United States arrived in Haiti Sunday to assess its security and other needs. The team includes personnel from the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A Biden administration official says the U.S. will also consult with its regional partners and the United Nations on the turmoil in Haiti. Sunday marked the United Nations World Population Day. Its experts say there is no perfect population number and that human innovation will continue to manage and outpace the growth in the number of humans living on the planet. Let's get more from VOA's Laura Bowman.
It took most of human history for the world's population to reach 1 billion people, but over the past 200 years, that number has increased 7-fold, according to the United Nations and other data. The world's population now stands at about 7.7 billion, and forecasters expect Earth will cross the 11 billion people mark around the turn of the next century.
Behind the numbers is an enormous success in global health. Above all things, it's one of the great consequences of development that as human health has improved and mortality has declined, there has been an enormous growth of the human population.
The UN Population Fund tracks demographic trends and works with governments around the world on planning. The agency's experts report a big need to manage urbanization, as more than half of the world's population now lives in and around cities. Other experts have called for transnational migration plans. Large numbers of people may also be playing a role in climate change, but this issue is complex, according to the United Nations.
Very, very small amount of contribution to emissions are coming out of the developing world. So to focus on the numbers of fertility and family planning and growth in developing countries and to suggest that that is a cause of climate change is one of the great, let's say, detours to acknowledging the responsibility lies in the global north on patterns of consumption.
And what about that international COVID-19 baby bust we've all been hearing about? The downward trend in births will pass, say experts, and they argue that access to health care for women will, over time, help regulate population growth.
When people are able to have the number of children that they want, what we see is that in general, over time, people have fewer children, in part because the investments in children have risen. So the affordability of children, the cost of children has increased with the cost of education, for example.
Meantime, many top demographers say there is no perfect population number and that human innovation will continue to outpace population growth. Laurel Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced Thursday the U.S. mission in Afghanistan ends August 31st, but concerns remain about the plight of Afghan civilians, particularly women, as the Taliban continues to gain ground against Afghan forces. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain reports.
With the end of the 20-year mission in Afghanistan weeks away, the spotlight turns to the fate of women and girls. The Taliban now claims they control 85% of the country, and humanitarian concerns are mounting. President Joe Biden says he has given assurances to Afghan President Ashraf Ghani.
In our meeting, I also assured Ghani that U.S. support for the people of Afghanistan will endure. We will continue to provide civilian and humanitarian assistance, including speaking out for the rights of women and girls.
Experts agree the Taliban are not meeting the conditions they agreed to in the U.S. Taliban peace deal. Melanne Verveer, the former first U.S. ambassador for global women's issues, spoke to VOA.
They have not ceased the violence. They have continued to engage, they and their militant networks. Horrible assassinations. We've been greatly concerned about what's happening to leaders in civil society, what's happened to women journalists, women judges, the girls' school bombing, just horrible, horrible atrocities that we are witnessing with great, great concern.
One of the 100 or so districts the Taliban have captured in recent weeks is Balkh in northern Afghanistan. Local residents say the Taliban have imposed repressive new rules in the district, ordering women to cover their heads and men to grow beards. Some districts are reporting girls' schools are being closed. Democratic Representative Seth Moulton says he has spent time in Afghanistan and is worried for the people he met, especially the women and girls.
I mean, it just breaks your heart to think about the Taliban taking over parts of the country and condemning women to essentially a life of servitude. And none of us want to see that happen. The president made it clear that ultimately this is up to the Afghan people and the Afghan government. But I certainly hope that we do whatever we can to support women and girls in Afghanistan and all the progress that they've been able to make with America in the last 20 years.
Afghan forces are vowing to fight to win back control of some of the districts recently taken over by the Taliban as their American and NATO counterparts depart. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
We would like to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, refugee athletes prepare to go for the gold in Tokyo. We'll be right back.
Be sure to join me for the next Straight Talk Africa as we continue our in-depth look at the lives and experiences of people who have had to flee their homes and communities and start over elsewhere. We'll bring you part 2 of VOA's new documentary, A Day in the Life of Refugees. You do not want to miss that on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Vaccine hesitancy in the U.S. is proving hard to crack, with roughly 1/3 of Americans not vaccinated against COVID-19. the disease caused by the coronavirus. The partisan divide over the vaccine continues to hamper efforts to defeat the virus. Michelle Quinn reports.
Areas in the U.S. with low COVID-19 vaccination rates are seeing a rise in hospitalizations, including in adults 18 to 49 years old, who now account for more than 40% of COVID-19 related hospitalizations, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. President Joe Biden said last week it is time to step up outreach to persuade people to get their shots.
We need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Some Republican lawmakers said they were concerned that the federal government was planning to come to people's doors. The Biden administration clarified that the president, a Democrat, didn't mean federal agents would be forcing people to be vaccinated. The administration said the federal government would provide more support to states through what it called surge response teams. The persistent partisan divide over the vaccine appears to be hampering vaccination efforts. A little less than half of Republicans surveyed recently by ABC and the Washington Post said they are vaccinated or will be vaccinated, compared to 93% of Democrats. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the White House chief medical advisor, says it's important to reach the unvaccinated through people they trust.
We've got to get away from the divisiveness that has really been a problem right from the very beginning with this outbreak.
COVID-19 hospitalizations have been rising in recent weeks in Arkansas, a state that tends to vote Republican. Just 32% of Arkansans are fully vaccinated, according to the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, a Republican, says vaccine skepticism is tied to conservative beliefs about government.
And we just have to answer it just like we have all through history, that you overcome skepticism and mistrust by truth. You overcome resistance and obstinance with saying it's important for our community and it's important for the health of our state and nation.
Looking ahead, the CDC said schools should be fully opened in the fall for in-person learning. But whether students and staff who are fully vaccinated will be required to wear masks may again be a partisan issue. Republican governors of Arkansas and Texas are saying no to students masking, and officials in California, a Democrat-leaning state, are saying yes, because social distancing isn't always possible. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
The Biden administration is sending 3 million doses of the Moderna coronavirus vaccine to Indonesia as the archipelago deals with a surge in COVID-19 cases. The Indonesian government said it will use the doses as booster shots for health workers who have already been fully vaccinated with the Chinese Sinovac vaccine. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
As Indonesia battles a record-breaking surge in new COVID-19 cases and deaths due to the highly contagious Delta variant, on Friday, the government confirmed a shipment of 3 million doses of Moderna vaccines shared by the Biden administration.
This will be the first shipment, and there will be the second shipment as well from the U.S. And this is part of doses sharing mechanism through COVAX facility by the U.S.
A White House official told VOA the shipment is one of the largest batches the U.S. has donated. The U.S. has allocated 4 million doses for Indonesia, with the remaining 1 million doses to be shipped soon.
In addition to the vaccines, we're moving forward on plans to increase assistance for Indonesia's broader COVID-19 response efforts. We recognize the difficult situation Indonesia currently finds itself in with a surge of COVID cases, and our thoughts are with those in Indonesia who are affected.
Only about 5% of Indonesia's population is fully vaccinated. Jakarta relies heavily on Chinese vaccines and has procured more than 108 million doses of Sinovac. After several medical personnel already fully inoculated with the Sinovac vaccine died of COVID-19, the government said it would use the Moderna vaccines as booster shots for its 1.5 million health workers.
The third jab will only be given to health workers because health workers are the ones who are exposed to high levels of virus every day.
The U.S. has committed to donate 580 million doses worldwide, part of the 1 billion doses pledged by G7 countries. So far, 80 million doses have been allocated and about 50 million have been shipped. Analysts say wealthy nations must share doses at a larger and faster scale.
And we know that in places like Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Latin America, that the need is great, that we're seeing people dying unnecessarily while the vaccines are sitting in freezers and shelves. So we have to really think about a mobilization SWAT team or equivalent that's able to get vaccines out and make sure that the countries have capacity to use them.
Responding to VOA about plans to donate more doses, the White House press secretary said the United States is already the largest contributor.
The president has made clear that we will continue to build from here, and we're working on manufacturing capacity around the world and in the United States, and we will continue to contribute even beyond the billion doses.
On Thursday, the administration said it is also sending to Moldova 500,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the first batch of U.S. vaccines shared with Europe. In addition, 1.5 million J&J doses will be sent to Nepal and 500,000 Moderna doses to Bhutan. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Olympic officials have barred spectators from the Games amid spiking coronavirus cases in Japan. Organizers have long said they will push forward with the Olympics, but experts say the highly transmissible Delta variant should give them pause. VOA's Arasha Basadi has more.
This virus, the Delta variant specifically, is the greatest threat that we have faced during this pandemic. It is faster, stronger, fitter in every way. The Olympic motto, Altius Citius Fortius, really applies to the Delta variant.
The International Olympic Committee's website says the Latin phrase means faster, higher, stronger, and the words encourage athletes to give their best. In the case of the coronavirus, the words translate to some of the highest case numbers Japan has seen in months. IOC President Thomas Bach says an absence of spectators changes the meaning of the Games.
We all regret this decision for not having spectators. For the spectators, but even more so for the athletes, who will not be able to enjoy live the Olympic atmosphere. But for the athletes, I think the feeling will be very different because they will know that billions of people from around the globe are with them in their heart, that they are supporting them, that they are feeling with them.
And while Bach says athletes will share special moments with TV audiences, Feigl Ding says they should share safe practices during and after the Olympics.
I would tell the Olympic organizers that it's incumbent on them that the Games are not just a celebration of bringing people together in the name of sport, but also bringing people together safely and protecting the world.
Tokyo is under a state of emergency that will last throughout the Olympic Games. The opening ceremony is July 23rd. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
Refugee athletes are going all out in their preparations for the delayed Tokyo Olympics, which is set to take place from July 23rd to August 8th. The Tokyo 2020 Games will mark the second Summer Olympics that features a team of refugee athletes competing under the Refugee Olympic Team banner. Thomas Bach, president of the International Olympic Committee, has announced a team of 29 athletes from around the world across 12 sports that will travel to Japan. That is 10 more than participated in the 2016 Rio Olympics. This year, the head of the mission of the Refugees Olympic Team, Tegla Lorupe, the former Kenyan marathon world record holder, is training 4 refugee athletes in Gong Hills, located southwest of Nairobi, before making the journey to Tokyo to pursue their dreams at the Games. North India's KULLU district is famed for its ancient tradition of spinning hand-woven stoles and shawls with designs that have been passed down for generations. Now artisans, many of them women, are learning to make another traditional Indian garment called the sari under a program sponsored by the local government and private sector that aims to reach new markets and enhance income opportunities for women. Anjana Pasricha has our report.
These artisans deftly weave traditional designs into the woolen fabric that they spin on looms at a workshop in North India's KULLU region. In addition to the traditional shawls made for decades, they are weaving another popular garment worn by women in India and other South Asian countries, the sari.
So to give it a variety and a new twist, we introduced this fabric which is called sari, and I'm very hopeful that the tourist who is coming to this district will definitely take it as a souvenir.
They will be among the first woolen saris, which are usually made of cotton and silk. Authorities are optimistic that adding them to shop shelves will boost income opportunities in this hilly district for artisans, especially women, who have woven garments with ethnic KULLU designs for centuries in their homes.
This work is very good for women. With the income, we can educate our children and live well.
At workshops, broader looms have replaced the old ones so that artisans can weave fabric with a wider width needed for saris. Demand for hand-woven garments, often made from local yarn, has risen in recent decades, according to a manufacturer.
Handloom fabrics have more warmth because they are uneven. Fabric made on power looms cloth does not have gaps, so it cannot trap body heat.
Enhancing the appeal of garments to a more fashion-conscious public has also helped boost sales.
To keep pace with the times and increase sales, we have consulted fashion institutes and started following global fashion forecasting trends.
The artisans have adapted to a new format quickly.
They are expert in making motifs on the fabric, so we just have to train them about the particular width and length of the sari, plus the weight of the sari. It should not be very heavy, because otherwise it will be very uncomfortable to wear.
While an ancient tradition is getting a new spin, much will depend on luring young people to learn the painstaking art.
Now, computers and phones are what interests them. So sometimes local people are hesitant to come, thinking their efforts may not fetch much value.
For the time being, some are weaving dreams into the project. Thakur, who learned the art to support her family, hopes making saris will open new avenues for her.
It's good. Maybe I can start my own business one day.
It remains to be seen if the KULLU designs can fulfill such aspirations. Anjana Pasricha for VOA News, New Delhi.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.